Hi everyone, my name is Hunter Zamzo. This is my third year in bioscience and my fourth year at Shattuck. Happy Earth Day. The Earth is very important, but so is the ACL. So, many of you have heard of ACL injuries, but let me show you exactly how they occur in soccer. In the two videos I'm going to show, you will see that there is not just one mechanism of injury. So in the upcoming video, watch the right leg of number 21. You will see that he plants his right foot and then turns, causing the injury. So right there is when the ACL tear occurred. This is a non-contact injury. So another less common mechanism of ACL injury is contact. So in this video, you will see that the blue player will hit the white player's leg. And so this contact right about there causes the ACL tear of the player wearing the white jersey. So to understand ACL injuries, you first need to understand the anatomy of the knee. So obviously, you are looking at a leg. If we go beneath the skin, you'll see the muscles and tendons. And I know all of you have heard of the quadriceps muscle. And here's your kneecap, or patella. And this is the patellar tendon. So now if we remove the muscles and tendons, you can see the bones and ligaments that make up the knee joint. So here again is the kneecap. This bone is the femur. And this bone here is the tibia. So now we'll zoom in on the knee joint to get a better view of the ligaments that hold the knee joint together. So now you can see the ligaments inside of the knee joint. On either side of the joint are the collateral ligaments, and in the middle of the knee joint are the infamous cruciate ligaments. They're called cruciate ligaments because cruciate means to cross, and you can see that the two ligaments cross. The ligament in the front is called the anterior cruciate ligament, or the ACL. And yes, there is a posterior cruciate ligament behind it, but it's kind of hard to see on this picture and is injured less often than the ACL itself. So as you saw in the videos, ACL tears often occur when the femur rotates inwards while the foot and lower leg remain planted. So now that you know all of that, I will show a video of what actually happens inside the knee joint when the ACL is torn. So you'll see this twice. Notice that the lower leg and foot remain planted while the femur rotates inwards, causing the tear of the ACL. So there definitely are consequences to sustaining this injury. Most people just think about the short-term consequences, such as, obviously, there's pain and swelling. There's also a possibility of surgery. And while surgical repair is a pretty good treatment for ACL tears, it can be very expensive, with the average cost of surgery being over $9,000. And ACL reconstruction isn't perfect. It has about a 90% success rate. But what many people don't know is that there are serious long-term consequences to sustaining an ACL injury. These include 5 to 10 months spent rehabilitating the knee before returning to sport, and it's estimated that only 65 to 88% of athletes who tear their ACL even return to play less than a year after tearing. So people who tear their ACL are also at a higher risk for developing early onset knee arthritis in their lives. So on the left, you can see the healthy knee joint with healthy cartilage, and on the right, you can see the deteriorating cartilage. So most importantly, however, what you may not realize is that there are long-term emotional consequences as well. There's a loss of physical activity, your identity as a soccer player is changed, and daily contact with your teammates can be diminished. So additionally, it has been well established that females are 2 to 8 times more likely to tear their ACL than males. So why does this difference exist? This is probably due to multiple factors. First, it is likely that there's variability in reporting the occurrence of tears. Also, there are many gender-specific biomechanical and anatomical differences, including the hip-to-knee angle. So you can see females in pink have a larger hip-to-knee angle than males, and this may influence the risk of ACL tear. There is also the effect of estrogen. So estrogen is a constantly cycling hormone in the female body, and it actually does affect ligaments and tendons. Specifically, researchers have found that during certain points in the menstrual cycle, estrogen causes decreased stiffness of the ACL, which can lead to knee joint instability and increased risk of sustaining an ACL tear. So, a newly proposed reason for the higher risk of ACL injury in females is something called muscle preactivity. So, what is muscle preactivity? The best way to understand preactivity is to see it. So, in this picture, you can see Alex Morgan, a professional soccer player, looking at the grass and seeing how far away the ball is. In a split second, her brain then had to calculate exactly when and how her foot would hit the ground. And then her brain sent instructions through her spinal cord, down nerves to muscles in the torso, hip, and leg. This impulse activated her muscles to properly prepare for the impact of her foot hitting the ground. So if you look at her thigh and knee, you can see that the muscles are already contracted and ready to prepare for the impact of her foot hitting the ground. This is muscle preactivity. So with regard to muscle preactivity in female soccer players, researchers have found that low preactivity in the hamstring muscles can lead to higher risk of ACL tear. This makes sense. If your hamstring muscles aren't properly prepared to absorb the impact of your foot hitting the ground, it's easy to understand how this might put stress on your ACL. So let's go back to Alex Morgan. She has to send instructions from her brain to the muscles. This is called reaction time, how fast that can happen. And it might make sense that how fast your reaction time is would influence how well prepared your body is for impact. So I decided to research the influence of reaction time on ACL injury in female soccer players. First, let me tell you what I thought was going to happen. I was thinking that a player's reaction time would be linked to their risk of ACL injury. Specifically, I thought that uninjured players would have faster reaction times than those who sustained an ACL injury. So let me tell you about my experimental protocol. I started with 42 current and former female soccer players at Shattuck. At the beginning of the school year, each soccer player takes a pre-concussion baseline assessment called the impact test, which measures cognitive functions. One of the tests included in the impact assessment is reaction time. So next, I split my subjects into two groups, those who have sustained an ACL injury and those who have not sustained an ACL injury. So now let me show you my results. So from this chart, you'll be seeing the average reaction time in seconds calculated for each group. For the group of uninjured athletes, the average reaction time was 0.59 seconds. And for the group of injured athletes, the average reaction time was 0.625 seconds. So now you can definitely see that there is a difference between the reaction times of the two groups. But the question is, how likely is it that this difference is just due to random chance? So I used a p-value to determine this. I got a p-value of 0.07, which means there is a 7% probability that this difference is just due to random chance. Unfortunately, p-values need to be less than 0.05 in order to be considered meaningful or statistically significant. So, what can I conclude from this data? Because there is not a statistically significant difference in average reaction time between the injured and non-injured groups, this means my data does not support my hypothesis that uninjured players will have faster reaction times than those who sustained ACL injuries. However, there were some problems with my experimental method that may have influenced the data, but I will just tell you about two significant ones that I would need to fix. First, the impact test actually measures upper body reaction time, and soccer, as you all know, involves mostly lower body movements. And so in order to fix this flaw, I would need to use a method that specifically measures lower body reaction time. Another flaw is that I had 42 subjects. I probably need around 400 subjects for more accurate results. So it's possible with a larger sample size, my p-value could have been more significant. So when thinking about future steps in this line of research, I looked at my p-value. As you remember, my p-value was 0.07. In order for my data to support my hypothesis, my p-value would need to be less than 0.05. So because my value is close to this 0.05, I think that continuing to research the influence of reaction time on ACL injury will definitely be worth pursuing. And if reaction time does influence risk of ACL injury, the next step in this line of research would be to see if integrating reaction time training into the athlete's practice schedule would decrease the risk of ACL tear. I am hoping I can make a contribution to this area of research in the future. Thank you.